go. Just double check in, make sure that everything's good. Yep, I think so. All right. You good?
Oh, yeah. The delay, it just took a while. So, yeah, it looks like it's up.
Okay, cool. Anyways, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Own the Chaos. My name is Brad. That guy over there is Fat Man Zoom. Stock market's crazy and chaotic, and we made it our mission to help you guys own it. What's up, my man?
Nothing much, brother. Just it's nice to be the one in the studio. Just it's just more comfortable here.
Yeah, I bet it's looking a little bit different because there's no lights back there.
I know. I'm keeping one camera, and I'm keeping it dark.
I like it. So how's your day going in the market?
That's a good question. Decent. Slightly green, surprisingly. I was hoping I was more green with the move, but Penn's not helping my cause at all. And surprisingly, Foot Locker has been incredibly frustrating for me.
So, sorry. Yeah, for me, it's been all energy and oil right now. It's kind of been holding me up. Penn National, for some reason, has just been taking a hit, which been kind of frustrating. But I'm actually kind of surprised on green today too, given everything that's been going on.
Yeah. On a separate note, crypto is up, and we've been kind of talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum sort of floating around these levels. But Bitcoin's actually about to break 51. It had a little move recently. It's been right teetering around 50 and then pushed right to Ethereum's trying to break 3,500. All good stuff for crypto. All good stuff for crypto. Hey, Brad. Hey, buddy. You there, buddy? You sandbagging some bitch. Where you at? You might get a Fat Man Zoom back-to-back doubleheader. Oh, I think he's back.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Anyways, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the audio issues. We'll hopefully get through those. But yeah, crypto's been doing pretty good. Everything's been bouncing back. My Cleveland Cliffs. So if you guys have been still in the Cleveland Cliffs plays along with me, that actually had a really nice bounce back day. My internet is just not doing well here, Fat Man Zoom. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. It's lagging pretty bad. We may have to I may have to give it off to you at some point, but we'll go ahead and work through this. But yeah, the Cleveland Cliffs has been doing really well, starting to work its way back into this trend. We've been talking about this over the last couple of days or a couple of weeks really, about how Cleveland Cliffs has been trading out of this trend, but holding above that 200-day moving average. And it's nice to see it actually moving back up into that trend.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stocks that were opportunities, and I think just speaking on the overall market yesterday, obviously was a hell of a red day. I had mentioned this in the live stream, but I don't think it comes as any surprise that today was a green day. A lot of stuff was green, but I think what matters most, and I said this yesterday, was what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen the rest of the week? And so I ask you that question. What are your expectations for the next couple days?
I think that we could potentially see a really nice bounce back. Overall, it might be a little bit more choppy, but it really comes down to some of the fears that are surrounding around uh, the issues dealing with the debt ceiling, and I think there's a lot of headlines surrounding around that, creating a lot of fear. And I mentioned this in our level 3 guy group that there's definitely some fear revolving around that, but I think that at the end of the day, they don't have a choice but to raise the debt ceiling. We have to be able to make good on our books, and so this is the only way to solve that problem. So I think any fear revolving around that is more than likely going to be unwarranted. So taking advantage of some of the fear that's surrounding around that's probably going to pay off over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. And so again, if there is some choppiness, expect the speculatives to get hit, tech to potentially get hit. Overall, the market generally will get hit, but it seems like those are getting battered more than others. However, we got a particular stock that's been battered recently that's going to be the main topic of the day. Before we get into it, let me just shout out our starting 5. We have Sean Ethier, Mysterious Gal, Savvy Money Show, Baker Twoon, and Zine Khan. Thanks for being the starting 5, guys. So as far as today, Brad, Facebook, we talked about it yesterday, but it continues to dominate the headlines, and then there's just more information that comes out, and the story continues to go forward as far as Facebook's concerned. But there was a few things that we wanted to discuss today. But why don't you just give everybody sort of an overall snapshot of what's going on with Facebook?
Yeah. So with Facebook, it's been really tough because there's been some headlines have been coming through from this whistleblower, Frances Haugen. If you guys haven't seen it, she was on 60 Minutes over on Sunday night, and basically kind of talked. She used to work for Facebook, was one of the higher ups there, and basically talked a lot of shit about about Facebook and what's been going on with them from a social responsibility standpoint. From misinformation to disinformation and all kinds of other stuff that have been shown to be destructive, not only in this country, but in other countries in particular. She seemed to highlight that quite a bit. And so, she ended up speaking to Congress over the last couple of days. Really, today is when she had her interview with Congress and laid out her feelings and thoughts based off of certain practices that Facebook has been putting out there, engaging in, I should say. And then yesterday, Facebook basically shuts down for 6 hours. Not even their employees could communicate with each other on the platform. I'm the one that puts my tinfoil hat on, but it just seems like very coincidental that something like that would have happened, and it happened for 6 hours. Some people are claiming that they're taking they use those 6 hours to kind of scrub their platforms between WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, and kind of you maybe try to protect themselves in some way before it ends up becoming potential evidence that they can't touch. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories rolling around out there, but nevertheless, the stock's been taking a pretty decent hit. It's up a little bit more today after a terrible day yesterday. But this is kind of where we're at, Fat Man Zoom. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on Facebook as a whole right now. And where do we go from here? Because this isn't the first controversial thing that Facebook has had to deal with, right? There's 2.5. It's up 2.5% today, but we've seen Cambridge Analytica, an array of other monopolistic claims that Congress has made on their towards Facebook and some of the other big tech, but nothing ever really seems to stick. And could this be something that actually turns into us?
Yeah, it's hard to say, and I'm sure there's the people who just think, okay, this is the one that's going to take it down. It's awfully frustrating with these tech companies because it seems like they're always sitting in front of Congress. It's hard to actually determine what's legitimate and not, or what will stand and not stand, because I feel like on the political end of things is that they are making this kind of a political issue, and it's not. There's a lot of things at play here that they're bringing things to the forefront, and so My concern with these type of investigations, and it's not just Facebook, it's Apple experiences this, Amazon experiences this, Google, Alphabet experiences this, and they've sort of been in the crosshairs of Congress multiple times. I think that works against like believing that any of this stuff will actually stick. But ultimately, you know, history has shown us that it won't. Now, one day will it? Maybe, but I think from operating in the markets, historically, I think the best the best thought here is this is just a dip buy opportunity. These are just dip buy opportunities. And I think it's the same thing for Facebook. And when I look at it, you think about what the repercussions would be, like worst case scenario, what they could break up a Facebook. They could break it up and say, hey, you know, this is monopolistic practice. Or as far as what's going on with the whistleblower, that's a fine. It's not going to shut down Facebook. But the monopolistic practice is, I think, the one that is sort of the one that could have legs in the future. But look no further than China and Baba. Does the U.S. really want to have a Baba situation on hand where you have your best company, your cash cow? Facebook's not our best company, but it's one of the top dogs and one of the most important media companies. You're going to try to break it up. Look what it means to the company. Look what it means, more importantly, to the economy and the market. They don't want to do that. So I don't think this has legs. I think this is a dip buy opportunity. Maybe not now, because we'll see how this stuff shakes out, but this will end up just being, to me, a dip buy opportunity, especially when you look at the fundamentals and you look at the cash on hand.
Yeah, that for sure. But I think there's also some concerns here with, you know, how Facebook has been, you know, or how small businesses rely on Facebook. And this could be, it could be, how do I explain this? It could be, obviously it's a good thing for small businesses right now because of the way that they're able to get exposure to other people, but it could get to a point to where small businesses are going to totally rely on Facebook, or you can't, you know, survive as a small business without something like Facebook. Does it get to that point, and can that be dangerous too? And I think that's a question that a lot of the people who are, this is a monopoly camp, are trying to make. And so I definitely get your point, and it's not that I don't disagree with you. I just think that there's other things that play here too that could be a huge cost. I agree. At the end of the day, Congress is stuck, I think, and lawmakers in general. They're not going to be able to regulate this as much as they want to because of how it does help small businesses. I mean, imagine what's going to happen when they start putting out regulations, and then it affects small businesses, and small businesses, as we all know, is the backbone of our economy. And so it's going to be it's going to create a domino effect if they start going down this road. But I don't know. It kind of feels like they're stuck in a bit of a really tough situation to try to regulate this to some degree, but also have the freedom to do what they want.
The problem is not with the algorithm or whatever. The reality is that Facebook isn't trying to just put out negative content to put out negative content. Facebook is trying to do whatever it can to keep people on their platform as long as they can and keep them engaged. And if that's through certain content, they're going to do it. TikTok is based on watch time. And like Freddie did, I don't know if you saw this skit, but Freddie did a skit on, listen, if you're complaining about TNA on TikTok, solely function on watch time. So if you've been on it a couple of days and you keep seeing TNA, it's because you just been watching too much TNA. And so that's the thing with Instagram. It's like, or Facebook and Instagram. Well, if you take that, if you come down on them, it doesn't matter. Somebody's going to take over. There's shitty content or negative content on all the platforms. What this, I think, does, I think this ends up being a really good positive for Facebook, because I think Facebook realizes first they needed to diversify, and nobody really wants to deal with the media drama. I think over the long term, Facebook is going to more shift, rather than a social company being more of a media company, more of a merchandiser. And so for them, I don't think the game is like, let's continue to blow up Facebook. I think, okay, we have a good thing with Facebook and Instagram. Let's actually move to other things. And they've talked about healthcare opportunities through WhatsApp. They've talked about marketplace, small business. I mentioned yesterday, wouldn't it be cool if that marketplace had an NFT component to it? Crypto, they've talked about. So, and AI, they're clearly diversifying. And honestly, if I was a leadership, I'd be like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I'm not going to deal with this. Let's focus more on the other pieces of our business, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is just going to be another a bump in the road, I think, for Facebook. And if Cambridge Analytica didn't bring them down, I don't think that this situation is going to bring them down either. And to be honest with you, when you look at the accusations that Francis is, claiming, that's going to take a lot for them to try to be able to prove something like that's happening. And I'm not saying that it's not, and it could very well be happening, and you could create instances in which support your claim, but to really go in an all-out investigation to prove that Facebook is maliciously and intentionally doing these things, I think is just going to be too big of a task for them to handle, unless there's some sort of smoking gun somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that if we can be aligned on the fact that this is simply just a buying opportunity, when do you think is an appropriate time that you would consider, you're already in it, so potentially adding to it or getting into it if you weren't in it?
Yeah, so I think for me, I thought potentially that this could come back down and touch the 200-day moving average, but I don't think there's anything. I don't think you should have to worry about trying to find the bottom on Facebook, because to me, it's going to continue to rally and probably go up towards the end of the year. So I think that if you wanted to wait around a little bit to see if there's a potential reversal here, you can. I think you do have some time. So watching for it to move back to 350 area, perhaps, where it's still actually where it would fall back in line with its trend that we've been seeing over 6-7 months. I think that's certainly a good area of opportunity that you could look into. Now, could you buy it today and kind of see where it goes? Sure, see what happens there. But there's definitely you got time on your side as far as making an entry here on Facebook, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm trying to think offhand. I'm going to pull up. Do you know offhand when their earnings are? Because I feel like that's one thing that'd be an interesting time to look at Facebook.
Their last earnings was July 28th, so their earnings should be towards the end of this month.
Yeah, I feel like most tech is like the last week of October, and I feel like somebody in the community will probably shout that out. But okay, here we go. So the date for next Facebook earnings, it looks like, is October 27th. October 27th. And Brad, also, I think the bar setting is set kind of low for it. 317 is share earnings per share estimates, when last quarter they came in at 361, and I think they're going to have a dominant number. So fundamentally, if you look at the metric behind Facebook, where it sits now, it looks really good. And it's going to look far better if this goes sideways or continues to go down. So I think this is definitely one, as we go into October 27th, will be really interesting.
I think so too. Do you think that there's any risk involved with those earnings projections, given that the platforms were down for 6 hours yesterday, and people weren't able to view their ads they would have been able to see otherwise? Do you think that has an impact at all on potential earnings?
It could. I mean, it's for sure
not this particular quarter, but like for next quarter, because we're in the fourth quarter already.
I think you could make the argument for that, but I don't think that it's going to matter, because one, they would tell us that, right? So if you have a dominant quarter and then they tell us, it isn't a surprise. So I think you can mitigate a little bit of that reaction. But moreover, I think that while I think it's possible, I don't think it's would happen, because it's just a one-off event. And all we need to hear from them is, hey, here's what happened, here's how we addressed it, and here's how we plan to prevent it in the future. And so if you can answer those questions, I don't think it will impact it, especially because the stock's already been beaten down. If it was at all-time highs, my answer may be a little bit different.
Yeah. I agree with that. Good stuff, man.
Well, the thing I wanted to ask was, the question that got brought up yesterday is it time for a community buy?
I think so. I think all of the other community buys we've had has been like penny stocks. And why can't a FANG be on here? Why can't we have a FANG as a group buy? I think that Facebook's a great buy here where it's at. It's obviously been, we just got done talking about it, but yeah, I think we could make this a community buy. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, so historically we've had Drive Shack as a community buy. We've had MGM. We've had Callaway. Which was Clover a community buy?
It might as well have been.
What was the one? I mean, we've only missed one, and it was the most recent one.
Car lots.
Oh yeah, that was car lots. Yeah, that was a dog shit of a stock.
That was a rough one.
Yeah. That was our only miss. All the other community buys have been good, so I think we're due. So I'll tell you what, I'm down to make this thing a community buy. You guys in the chat, let us know, is this one that we should be getting in, or is there a better stock that you have an idea of? Maybe Brad, on Twitter, you can do a poll and get some feedback, and then tomorrow we can announce officially if our community buy is going to be that or another stock potentially. Just something fun that both can get into. Don Franz in the chat, he's also in it, so he's down for a community buy as well. Probably add some since it's his number one position, I believe.
Speaking of Twitter, Fat Man Zoom, I have a story, and I was going to wait to bring this up until we got through the Facebook stuff because I thought that took priority. But I had a little bit of back and forth between a CBC correspondent today on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Do you know who Steve Weiss is?
No, I don't.
So Steve Weiss is a correspondent on CNBC's halftime report, and I should say. And he's usually and all the other guys, Josh Brown and whomever. And he is he's an investor, and he gives some of his insights or whatever else. Yesterday, he put out a tweet. He said, "I bought Penn." I'll share the tweet out with you. He said,
I know this guy. I his face.
Yeah. He said, "I bought Penn believing the NFL would drive attention to shares of betting stocks, physical facilities, and at Stool President Dave Portnoy. No lift from NFL season, so thesis is wrong, and my concern had always been marketing costs, which is the only way to compete. Too much irrational pricing, including DraftKings." And I actually retweeted and said, "Mr. Weiss, there was 4 weeks into the season. Penn doesn't need to spend on marketing like DraftKings or Caesars or others because of the 80 million stories they have access to without spending a dime. I don't understand how people, how many investors miss this and don't see how valuable that is." Then Steve Weiss actually responded, said, "I don't care if you're a stoolie or not. If MGM DraftKings is offering you $1,000 in free, Penn has to match. Loyalty is free until there is a better deal elsewhere." And, this is something that I think is hilarious because my response to him then was this. It was that Barstool was providing $1,000. And it says, ahead of a critical AFC West showdown, this was Monday night, bettors can grab a Barstool Sportsbook promo for Monday Night Football. It provides $1,000 free first. All bettors, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. Not only that, but they also provide you with, if you're a first-time bettor with their platform, you're covered for up to $5,000 if your first bet is a losing one. So, like, if you go in, if you're a first-time user of Barstool, you lose $5,000, they replace it for you. You can go bet again. So Steve Weiss was just I don't know, way out of pocket on this. It didn't make any sense. And we're only 4 weeks into the NFL season. It was kind of nice. I appreciate him responding, but I just can't believe how hot this.
Yeah, that's cool. He responded. I mean, on a couple levels, I think I take issue with it. One is our issue has never been like to point out the free bet. Like, okay, to your point, everybody's really doing that, and it's a great tool. Like, how much does $1,000 on the app really cost them? Because you're not getting $1,000, you're getting $1,000 credit that could be used on future bets. And so, between wins and losses, what does that really net out for them as far as how much they end up putting out? So I love that strategy, but like the issue is when you look at these other companies, our issue has been how they're spending outside of the app. And like there's far more marketing dollars spent, I would imagine. I don't know this is a fact, but more spent on these partnerships that DraftKings, even MGM, that they're doing, and they're just spending all this FanDuel, they're spending all this money. I think the big point that's missed is this whole point about loyalty. Like, you can't really talk about loyalty as far as stoolies. Yeah, somebody might get a free $1,000 and go to DraftKings, but they're not staying. And Penn is paying the long game. DraftKings is trying to get everybody in now. Penn is paying the long game. They don't have to go out and get other people. They just have to convert their existing base, to your point. So I think that definitely misses on a couple levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And the argument as far as loyalty, they could lose loyalty for something like that. First of all, Penn's doing it, so there's that. But the other thing is that it then can you tell Elon that loyalty doesn't matter for his brand, or Ford owners, that loyalty doesn't matter to that brand? Like, loyalty is huge, and the community and the culture that they've built with Barstool, I think, is invaluable, in my opinion. So I think that, again, like that take was also, I think, flat wrong.
Well, I think I probably interpreted it a little differently. I think he's implying when all things are equal, right? Because a sports bet is a sports bet, and so the line is pretty much similar. Your lines are going to be similar. What you can bet on is going to be similar. Not prop bets, but just general bets. Whereas like the Tesla, I appreciate your point about Tesla. My only thing about Tesla is like all things aren't created equal as far as Tesla is concerned. That's the only thing I'm saying in his defense.
Yeah, yeah, and I can respect that. It just like seemed kind of weird to me, with that kind of response. Like, I think personally, this comes down to Steve Weiss just hating on Dave Portnoy. Yeah, because we've seen this a lot from people like this. Like, Dave Portnoy is, very controversial. He's kind of an asshole at times. So like, I would have actually accepted the answer of just like, you know what, I really don't like Dave Portnoy, rather than just coming up with kind of like an answer that didn't make a whole lot to me, because it was making Penn already does.
Yeah. It does seem like just a bitter person, because I see this when people complain about us and certain stocks we bring to the channel, when they complain about just general stocks and moving down. And it's like, they act like like we did something personal to them, or stock did something personal to them. And that's what it feels like here, because he started with just saying, hey, I got Penn because of these reasons. And he's like upset at the market because it didn't do what he thought it was going to do, which is surprising with somebody who's got experience and who's seasoned. I expect that from somebody who's new. Sometimes the move doesn't happen like you think it's going to happen, but the initial thesis was right. And to your point, it's only 4 weeks in. Like, come on, man. First off, we haven't even really seen the numbers, and the beginning of the year we know is far lower as far as sports betting is concerned, as like the end of the year, and certainly playoffs and Super Bowl when the stakes are far higher.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, I did appreciate him responding, and I thought it was cool, just to kind of get a little bit more of his take and actually created a lot more conversation on there. So if you guys want to go follow me on Twitter to see who some of the other responses from other folks, make sure you're going to follow me at Own the Chaos on Twitter. Love to have you guys as a follower. Speaking of which, we got 69 people here hanging into the chat on the live stream. So if you guys could hit that thumbs up, we certainly would appreciate it. We got about 29 likes right now. So good stuff, guys. What else you got, Fat Man Zoom?
Well, first off, let me shout out Savvy Money Show. This was brought up in our Discord. CNBC apparently is doing a piece on AI and gambling, so that should be interesting. Conversation around that's always, can only be helpful in my opinion. So that'll be interesting what they come on with. When is that, Savvy? I don't remember if that was today or a different day, but I think that was put in yesterday. So certainly keep an eye on that. I did want to ask you a question regarding overall sentiment in the market. So we just tonight we already released the video for the the top 5 stocks for October. So make sure you guys check it out. But how much do you think, how much does your overall sentiment regarding the market revolve around what happened at the end of this month when earnings season begins and it kicks off? And do you think that could be a catalyst going into November?
I think it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be very important to be a good stock picker towards the end of the year, especially as it comes to earnings. Companies that are very sensitive to the supply chain issues that we have been seeing may be a little bit of a tough road. I mean, we saw that with some of the earnings that have already come out. Bed Bath and Beyond, most notably, made a huge point to say, "Hey, we're kind of suffering because of this," and the stock dropped 30%. That's not to say, and some of the other ones that. And Nike, for example, also mentioned that during their earnings a couple weeks ago. So I think that this is going to continue to be an ongoing issue for a lot of those companies that rely on shipping resources to sell their products and that sort of thing. But I also think that we look at the other side of this, like we've been talking about, energy, travel stocks, travel related stocks like airlines, and even some of the manufacturers such as Boeing. I think that those are going to continue to do well going into the earnings season. But it may be a little bit more of a tougher sled for some of the companies that sell physical products that need to rely on good shipping or efficient shipping, and some of the shortages that they've been experiencing could continue to cause problems.
Yeah, and I think not only considering reopening, obviously we were very bullish on energy still, and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. But I think that's also to a point is like, what other stocks aren't as reliant on, the supply chain? Because once we both agree that this debt ceiling will be lifted, and so that should get things rolling again. Obviously, somebody mentioned the infrastructure bill. There's a lot of things that should play out over hopefully the next few weeks in the favor of the market moving forward. And so when you look at the companies like we just spoke about Facebook, which is digital advertising. When you look at a Roku, digital advertising. When you look at cybersecurity stocks, I mean, that's going to be a huge play as well. Looking at these companies that aren't as reliant, I think are going to present really good opportunities because they've been kind of beaten down with rising yields, the uncertainty around the debt ceiling, and I think this could present opportunities. But I expect monster numbers from those companies, like the likes of. I think Roku is going to surprise a lot of people because I think digital advertising's only really getting started.
Yeah, if you look at it's interesting, right? And I actually wanted to pull a clip from, and you get all the credit for this. The movement on Netflix. We've been talking about how the FANG stocks have been taking a pretty decent hit. They all have, except for Netflix. Yeah. Netflix, we talked about this in July about Netflix being a really good solid buy. And let's just take a look at this. And so, as we start to hear from them about creating new original content and more of that's coming out, which I'm excited for. Some of my favorite shows that are going to be coming back out as well.
Uhtred,
Netflix is still going to be king here, I think. What's that?
Uhtred, son of Uhtred of Bebbanburg.
Bro, I can't wait. I cannot wait. But yeah, so Netflix has been off, and I think that you can make the argument for something as well that has kind of taken a beating, and those earnings come out, and we should see some pretty solid numbers, I would think, especially as more people are kind of warming up to getting into and back into streaming services such as Disney Plus, Netflix. We're getting into the colder months. Makes a lot of sense to own one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, like anytime we're bringing up Netflix, I want to remind people, because I feel like it's really been underreported and underappreciated, which is the online gaming piece of that. And they're looking to create exposure in that, which I think is a genius move. And I'm excited for it. So yeah, definitely a good call. Certainly for everybody that likes to beat me down on my other calls, at least one that worked out. Hey,
I mean, in July, Fat Man Zoom, it was at $505, which is when we talked about it. This is actually end of July.
Yeah.
And it, got $40 today. Like, that's awesome. That's incredible. So
that is.
Yeah. And everybody was shitting on Netflix at that point, but you were one of the contrarians that was just like, no, this has got to be the time to start thinking about getting Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic example of like when you just look at all the indicators and you look at how much has been beaten down, and like an industry leader that's really been beaten down, I feel like are some of the best opportunities because they're in the lead for a certain reason. So whether Netflix will be in the lead 10 years from now, I can't tell you, but for the foreseeable future, they're going to continue to do really well. I wanted to bring up another question that kind of somebody's comment sparked this. Philip Stroh said probably the lawsuit. Don mentioned talking about Tesla being sideways. Tesla delivery numbers blew it out. We talked about that. It's been largely sideways this week in 2 days. But he said the lawsuit with the news of Tesla. So he's saying that potentially there wasn't the move back up because of that. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. So for those of you who don't know, there was a settlement where Tesla had to pay a previous employee $138 million, if I'm not mistaken, for just workplace harassment, essentially. And so first question is really, do you think it's material? And the second one is do you think that's a contributing factor for why Tesla isn't moving?
First of all, holy shit, that's crazy.
I know.
Any kind of something. John says wasn't it 130 million? Regardless, if it's over 100 million, if it was over 50 million, I'll be like, what the hell? But that is crazy. That is a crazy number. As far as Tesla and the impact on the stock, I don't think it's going to matter one bit. And actually, I was talking about this with the Chaos Crew folks. Our level 3 morning, I was like talking about how after Tesla comes in and usually beats expectations on sales, historically we've seen over the years that Tesla has a pretty decent sized move going into earnings, because the expectation is, as well, if they ended up being sales like they did, then earnings should be good. So I think actually Tesla could go higher from here. We saw it hit $800 yesterday, came back and settled at the 780 support here that you guys can see. So I think I think this is actually a good spot to maybe consider getting into Tesla, or even adding to, only because historically we see 15% moves after positive sales numbers. And that's not to say that it's going to have that move, but if the pattern does follow itself, it could be somewhere into that 10 to 15% move from here, leading into earnings.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, I think that's more the reason why it's sideways, is because leading into just earnings. I think people are waiting on earnings. I will say, we talked about this on Sunday. I wonder if there's a little bit of a difference that there were revised delivery numbers going into the delivery, and it was an expected blowout, where the last couple quarters we've been like, oh, it might be close. A lot a lot of analysts were predicting like this is going to be a blowout, and all signs pointed to a blowout. So because of that, I don't think it necessarily sold off, but I think that the reaction wasn't as strong because it was, I would say it might have been built in because it had been running into it. And so we're literally today, we're 2 weeks away from Tesla's earnings, which is on October 19th. I'm interested to see how it goes in earnings. You're right. Historically, it would move in. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it stays sideways. I would be surprised if it goes down, like below 750 for Tesla. I would be really, really surprised for that. I honestly think it'll stay up here, right around the 780 area. But the earnings reaction is going to be interesting. What does benefit them, and not huge, but like it always helps when Bitcoin is up because of their exposure to Bitcoin. So its timings are really good for Bitcoin that it's now over 50 and could move into it. But I don't, 130 million is a lot, but to us, it's a lot. The company doesn't want to continue to pay out 130 million, but it's not going to really move the needle for them moving forward. Let them, share some of their Bitcoin stake and pay them off.
Well, the other thing is too is that I don't know, is 130 million what the jury says they should pay? Because isn't there a difference between what the jury says you should pay and then what actually gets paid out? Is this something that went to trial? Because I'm not privy to the news. Was this the actual settlement that they just said, here, take our 130 million dollars, or was this something that a jury ruled on?
Well, so it looks like the court ruled on it. I don't think it was a settlement outside of it. But I'm not sure how that works, to be quite honest with you. One thing I do want to point out that's just kind of a funny side note. So they have mandatory arbitration contracts, and this guy was a contractor. And so the reason why he was able to take them to court was because he didn't sign the document. So he didn't have to go through arbitration. And so apparently there's a guy a few years ago who actually had a similar experience and it went through arbitration, and he received $1 million. Now, $1 million is a good chunk of money, but how is he feeling right now? He's experienced the same thing, and because he signed the mandatory arbitration, he got $1 million instead of $130 million.
I mean, it's just mind blowing. That is really just mind blowing. You practically won the lottery at that point. I mean, you didn't have to do a whole lot to get $130 million in the grand scheme of things. Now, listen, harassment's a serious thing. I don't want to downplay that, but like that is insane.
Yeah, bro. I'm going to go back to all my high school buddies and tell them to pay up, because I dealt with a lot of harassment and a lot of racial jokes. So I need to get paid up, and we definitely need to bring this topic to Freddie Valois. I'd love to get his thoughts on this, because I'm sure he would take far less to deal with some of that harassment.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I mean, the real question is, how much harassment are you willing to take for $130 million? We're not going to be able to answer it, but fortunately, I think Freddie has the freedom to answer that question.
I was going to say, you can harass me all you want if you're going to give me 130 million.
Holy shit. Is this true? Shock City Rocker said Palantir just won a nearly $1 billion contract. Let me check this out real quick.
Did that just come out? It's up 2% after hours right now.
I'm not seeing it, but I'll check Twitter real quick.
Looks like there's something, because we're seeing a pretty decent pop on Palantir here after hours. Nice little burner candle on the 5-minute.
I'm gonna check Twitter real quick.
Yeah, nothing on Webull right now as far as news is concerned, but
okay, yeah. So
yeah, pretty decent pop.
So U.S. Army contract, $823 million.
Damn.
Wild.
Yeah, so there you have it. Thanks for sharing, Shock City Rocker. This is continuing to move up, but that's another big win for Palantir. I will say it's another big win for them monetarily, but just another government contract for them. So I'd be curious to see how investors actually respond to this, especially because they wanted to see more exposure to, the commercial side of things. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow. But yeah, right now it's looking good. Really nice movement here after hours.
How much is it up?
It's up over 1.5%, almost 2%.
Okay. Um, that's interesting. Yeah, man, this is great. Obviously, they did talk about last earnings. Their commercial has been going up. They've been focusing on that, but continue to be dominant in the government contracting space. This is huge news, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
technically, you could speak more on this if you pull out the Palantir chart. Pause. But if you pull that out, pause. I think this might be actually a really good level as well.
We take a look at the daily chart. Yeah, for sure. If it gets back up over $25, which is where the 50-day and the 200-day are converging on each other, that's going to be the spot to watch and see if it breaks up over that. If it does do that, we should see it continue to rock and roll. But yeah, man,
That
good
might be on
stuff. I
the
mean, now it's now up 2.5%.
That might be on the watch list tomorrow, guys. If you're interested to get the 5 stocks that we're watching every day, we send it out every morning before the market opens. 5 stocks, fundamental, technical breakdown. Click the link in the description, and we send out a free daily watch list every day before the market opens.
It's still rocking and rolling here, continuing to climb here. I guess as news is getting out, it's up over 9% and going to go up over the high of the day. And there it is. It's now at $24 a share. Fat Man Zoom. Palantir, shout out, Shock City Rocker.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Appreciate you bringing the news, man.
I just jumped into it. I got
Did you really?
23.7. Yeah, I got 23.77.
There you have it, guys. Fat Man Zoom just bought himself some Palantir.
I mean, I like this stock. Technically, I've been having my eye on it. I wrote it up last time it had a run. And, Kathy Wood special, I think this is the type of news that could get it moving. And hopefully, as long as it stays above that support, I will feel good about it. But the levels look pretty good. So I'll keep you guys posted on how I play that out. Bro, I think that's all I got for today.
Same here, guys. Again, thanks for tuning in. We certainly appreciate you. If you wouldn't mind hitting the thumbs up on your way out, we certainly would appreciate that as well. And we'll be back here again tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For what's going on markets, and we'll hopefully see you guys there. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Bye.